They don't care about your feelings, they only respect your silence. That's the brutal truth no one tells you. In a world ruled by dominance and perception, reacting emotionally is like bleeding in a pool full of sharks. People don't see your vulnerability and think, wow, how human. They see an opening, and they'll use it. That's not cruelty, it's strategy. The one who controls their reaction controls the room. Most people think indifference means being numb or heartless. But real indifference is power. It's having total emotional control and using it like a weapon. While others flinch, defend, over-explain, you observe. While they chase validation, you remain untouchable. There's a presence in detachment that feels mysterious. And in that silence, authority grows, fear grows, respect grows. Think of the average person, always reacting, always defending their image, always trying to be understood. But Machiavelli warned, the prince doesn't need to be loved. He needs to be feared, or better yet, strategically ignored. If people can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. And if they can't move you, they start to revolve around you. That's control. Most people are too loud, too transparent. They wear their emotions like neon signs and wonder why they get played. But the coldest strategy isn't attack. It's absence. It's the calculated non-reaction that shakes people more than any argument. It makes them spiral, rehearse, doubt themselves. You said nothing, and they imagined everything. That's the mind game. What if your greatest weapon is to simply not react? What if every time you feel the urge to speak, justify, confront, you chose silence instead? Not because you're weak, but because you're in control. Because you've realized that silence creates mystery. Mystery creates power. And power doesn't beg to be understood. This isn't about being passive. It's about precision. It's about knowing when to withhold your fire and let the enemy burn in their own flames. Because in the long game of strategy, contempt will always outweigh confrontation. But to truly use indifference as power, you need to understand what's happening beneath that silence. What happens when you choose not to react? People start to perceive you differently, and that's exactly the point. Indifference isn't emotional repression, it's emotional mastery. When you refuse to respond, your lack of reaction sends a powerful signal. You're above the emotional chaos around you. Your calmness makes others feel like they're not in control of the situation, and that, in their eyes, positions you as someone who stands apart from the crowd. The moment you don't engage emotionally, your value increases. In their eyes, you become someone worth observing, someone whose time and attention are priceless. But why is this so effective? The fear of being ignored runs deeper than the fear of being hated. People will put up with hate, but being ignored, that's a different story. When you choose not to engage, you force others to face their own insecurities. They start wondering, why don't they care? This lack of emotional investment from your side makes them question whether they matter at all. What they don't realize is that you're not ignoring them out of malice. You're simply recognizing their place in the larger game. In today's world, reactions are immediate and public. Social media, politics, and even personal relationships have trained us to expect instant emotional responses. And this is where the game changes. Who reacts? Who jumps in with emotion first? That person just gave up control. The moment you get emotional, you're no longer in the driver's seat. Machiavelli knew this truth. Whoever reacts too much reveals their weakness. In a world dominated by emotional knee-jerk responses, staying calm, staying indifferent, becomes a power move. Let's look at this from a psychological angle. When people try to provoke you, they expect a reaction. They want to see you squirm, get defensive, or make a move. When you don't, they're left with uncertainty, and uncertainty erodes their confidence. They begin to second-guess themselves. Why aren't you reacting? They're left holding the emotional weight, and that's where their vulnerability lies. By staying calm, you place the emotional burden on them, not you. You become the immovable force, while they become the one who's swaying. This isn't just theory, it's a tactical advantage in high-stakes environments. Think about political debates or online arguments. The person who stays emotionally unaffected, who doesn't bite the bait, automatically gains the upper hand. The crowd starts to look at them as the figure of strength, the one who controls the narrative. The more you react, the more you play into their hands. The less you react, the more power you have to shape the outcome. So, ask yourself, when was the last time you let your emotions rule your actions? Did you gain power in that moment, or did you lose it? The truth is, in a world where emotions are currency, being indifferent is the rarest and most valuable form of wealth. Silence is not weakness, it's strategic dominance. Why is contempt so much more powerful than confrontation? Think about it. When you engage in a confrontation, you're still acknowledging the other person as an adversary. You're giving them attention, space, and validation. Even if it's an argument, even if it's a fight, at least you're still connected. But contempt? Contempt is different. Contempt is when you choose to not even recognize the other person as worthy of your emotional energy. You don't give them the satisfaction of acknowledgement. You don't argue, you don't defend yourself, you don't even care enough to rise to the bait. And that, my friends, is where the true power lies. The absence of reaction, the cold indifference, that's what devastates people. It's painful. It's excruciating. When someone is ignored in such a deliberate way, they are left to confront their own inadequacy. The mind begins to spin. Why don't they care? Why didn't they react? What's wrong with me? You see, the inability to provoke a response, to stir any emotion in you, forces the other person to deal with the emotional void. They may even question their own worth. That's the genius of contempt. You don't have to fight back. You simply refuse to recognize the opponent as worthy of your time. This is where true power comes in, because when you ignore someone, you elevate yourself above them. You're not just untouched, you're untouchable. Let's think about historical examples. Kings, emperors, and leaders in positions of power didn't engage in petty confrontations with every insult or challenge. They didn't throw hands over every slight. Instead, they ignored insults with cold detachment. Take Emperor Marcus Aurelius, for example. The Roman emperor was insulted by many in his time, yet his responses were almost always marked by indifference. He didn't waste energy on the petty squabbles. His silence and his ability to move beyond the drama of others gave him an aura of invulnerability. His enemies knew. To provoke him was to waste their time. It was not the insult that mattered, but his refusal to engage. That was the ultimate disrespect. Think about modern-day figures, CEOs, celebrities, even politicians. How many of them respond to criticism with emotional outbursts or public feuds? Very few. Instead, the most powerful people remain silent, refusing to dignify petty attacks with a response. Why? Because they understand the game. Engaging with critics only elevates their status, makes them seem important, gives them more relevance. The real strength lies in choosing not to engage. The more you ignore, the more you place yourself on a pedestal, above the reach of your adversaries. This isn't just strategy, it's a psychological war. What does this mean for your own life? Consider the people around you, the ones who provoke you, the ones who criticize you, the ones who try to manipulate your emotions. What would happen if, instead of responding, you simply chose to remain silent? What if you refused to enter their drama? In relationships, this could be the most liberating thing you do. When you stop engaging emotionally, you stop giving away your power. You stop getting entangled in their web. You make them feel insignificant, and in doing so, you rise above them. The less you react, the more control you have over your emotional energy. Frisia neo e maldade. Ella e calculo. A verdadera maestria esta perceber, que você neo precisa, lutar toda batalha. Muitas vezes, neo reager e o movimento mais forte que você pode fazer. Eo neo dar atenção ao que neo maris. Você enfraquece seus inimigos, enquanto fortalece sua própria posição. E final, como Machiavelli dizia, o príncipe deve ser temido, mas neo odiado. E o primeiro passo para ser temido é, muitas vezes, simplesmente neo dar importância ao que tenta te diminuir. The moment you engage in confrontation, you've already acknowledged the other person as an adversary, as someone worthy of your energy. That's the first mistake. Why waste time arguing with someone you don't respect? In a world where power dynamics are everything, your silence is more destructive than any angry retort. Confrontation is a form of recognition of the other person's existence in the same space. What if instead, you simply let them fade into irrelevance, unnoticed and unimportant? When you choose contempt over confrontation, you're sending the message that they aren't worth your time or attention. That's what stings the most. Imagine the effect on someone who expects to be heard, who thrives on the validation of a response, only to be met with indifference. The more you disregard them, the more they will try to provoke a reaction. It's a cycle, and the more you remain unmoved, the more they reveal their own desperation. Take a moment to think about the most powerful people in history, leaders who held the world's attention without ever acknowledging the petty insults or challenges thrown their way. Kings who ignored barbed criticisms, CEOs who brushed off public attacks, and politicians who maintained a calm, collected demeanor, unshaken by the noise. These are the people who understood that true power lies in knowing when not to engage. They let their silence do the talking, and it made them invincible. This is not just a strategy for the elite. It's something anyone can use in their own life, in personal relationships or professional environments. When someone insults you, ignores you, or challenges you, your power lies not in defending yourself, but in choosing not to acknowledge them at all. You make the rules, not them. And when you stop reacting, you deny them the validation they so desperately seek. It's a tool of control, and it's available to anyone who dares to wield it. But this power isn't just about ignoring people. It's about mastering yourself. You're not ignoring the world because you're apathetic, but because you understand that energy spent on trivial matters is energy lost. The emotional high of reacting quickly, of meeting every challenge head-on, might feel good in the moment, but it's ultimately a waste. In the world of power dynamics, it's those who can stay calm under pressure who will dominate the battlefield. The emotional control you exercise will eventually define you. The key is knowing when to pick your battles. Not every moment requires a confrontation. In fact, most moments don't. This is the art of indifference, knowing when to rise above the noise. When you choose not to engage, you maintain your dignity, your composure, and your superiority. You show the world that you are not a player in their game, but the one who sets the rules. In that silence, in that contemptuous disregard, lies the ultimate form of power. What if I told you that the most powerful people in the world don't let their emotions control them? They've learned to control their emotions, not suppress them. It's easy to mistake emotional suppression for weakness, but in reality, it's the very thing that gives someone an edge in a chaotic, unpredictable world. Emotional control doesn't mean shutting down your feelings. It means knowing when to silence them, when to shut off the noise, and when to let clarity rule your actions. It's the ability to act with purpose, not reaction, that separates the truly powerful from the fragile. The science behind emotional control is fascinating. Our brain's limbic system, the emotional center, is in constant battle with the prefrontal cortex, which controls decision-making, reasoning, and strategic thinking. When emotions get the better of us, we fall into impulsive behavior, and impulsivity is the enemy of long-term success. Just think about how many times an emotional outburst has led to regret, damaged relationships, or destroyed reputations. The ability to master your emotions is what gives you control over the situation, over others, and over your destiny. In a world where everything moves faster than ever, instant notifications, fast-paced news cycles, social media rants, the temptation to react immediately is ever present. But this is where true strength lies, in the ability to pause, to take a step back, and to let the moment pass without rushing in. Every time you choose not to react impulsively, you're gaining the upper hand. The world around you may be chaotic, but you remain the calm within the storm. And in that calmness lies your power, your strategic superiority. Cold minds don't panic, they analyze. They evaluate the consequences, weigh the options, and then, and only then, they act. This is not apathy, it's a calculated approach to managing energy, both mental and emotional. In a war, who would you bet on? The one who reacts at every turn, or the one who keeps their cool and waits for the perfect moment to strike? The one who remains detached from the emotional chaos is the one who emerges victorious. That's why emotional control is so much more than just a survival tactic. It's a form of warfare. When you control your emotions, you give yourself space to make better decisions, to remain level-headed when everyone else around you is losing their grip. You take the reins, and by doing so, you place yourself in the driver's seat of your life. What's more powerful than that? Your enemies may crumble under pressure, your peers may falter in the face of difficulty, but you'll move through challenges with a sense of quiet confidence, knowing that your emotional state is yours to command. Cold minds win hot wars. This isn't just a quote. It's a reality that can be applied to every area of your life, your career, your relationships, your inner world. By mastering emotional control, you're not just surviving the chaos of life, you're mastering it. Your emotional intelligence is your greatest weapon, and when you wield it with precision, there's no limit to the heights you can reach. So the next time you feel the urge to react, to engage in the drama, ask yourself, what would happen if I didn't? Machiavelli understood that image is power. To appear virtuous is not necessarily to be virtuous, but to survive in a world that demands perfection. He taught that the outward display of kindness, while hiding the cold, calculating nature beneath the surface, is a key strategy for those who wish to maintain control. The world will respect the mask, but only those who can control what lies beneath it will hold real power. In this ruthless game, what you project is just as important, if not more so, than what you truly are. But what if the kindness you show to others is just another form of manipulation? What if the goodness you project isn't really for their benefit, but for yours? This is where the art of subtlety enters the equation. Diplomats, actors, and leaders, these people understand that the true game is not played with open emotions, but with a mask of empathy and kindness. Behind that mask, however, lies the cold calculation of power. The game is won by those who can keep their hearts untouched by the chaos they create, maintaining the facade of compassion while secretly pulling the strings. Machiavelli didn't write for the weak, his teachings are for the strategic. It is not necessary to be virtuous, only to appear so. These words reveal a truth we often refuse to face. The image you present to the world is more important than the reality of your character. Can you see how this applies to your life? The people who rise to the top often do so not by being good, but by presenting an image of goodness while remaining emotionally untouchable. They wear their kindness as a mask, but under the surface, they are calculating their every move. Can you truly call that hypocrisy? Or is it just survival? Think about the politicians and CEOs who never show emotion, who never seem affected by the slings and arrows of public opinion. They don't waste time defending themselves, they simply keep the mask intact. The people who respond with emotion, who reveal their insecurities, are the ones who lose. The colder you are, the more the world perceives you as strong. What does that tell you about the way you've been presenting yourself? What would happen if you allowed yourself to master this art of detachment? Consider the performers on the world stage, the diplomats, the CEOs, the actors, all playing their parts perfectly, exuding charm and grace, all while concealing their true intentions. These people know what you might not. That power comes from appearing virtuous without truly being so. To be seen as kind and considerate is to wield a silent form of dominance. But underneath, the ability to remain emotionally untouchable is the greatest strength of all. If you truly want to master influence, you need to learn how to hold your emotions under lock and key, using them only when absolutely necessary. This is where true mastery lies. Beneath the surface of politeness, there is a chilling calculation. When you begin to master the balance between showing kindness and keeping your true intentions hidden, you step into the realm of real power. Can you feel that shift? Imagine how differently people would perceive you if you could be outwardly kind, but inwardly a cold, calculating force. Can you afford to be so emotionally strategic in your life? Would it be worth it? Have you ever noticed how powerful silence can be? In a world full of noise and constant chatter, the one who chooses not to speak wields the most control. Saying nothing is not weakness, it's strength in disguise. Silence is not a passive response. It's an active choice that forces the world to react rather than you. People crave answers, but when you refuse to provide them, you become the one who dictates the terms. What if your silence could say more than any words ever could? When you remain silent in the face of provocation, you force others to confront their own fears and insecurities. They will begin to wonder, why aren't they reacting? The longer you withhold a response, the more power you gain. Silence is an enigma that keeps others off balance. It is a psychological weapon that makes people second-guess themselves, question their assumptions, and even doubt their own worth. The longer you wait, the more they lose control. And that, my friend, is a powerful advantage. Machiavelli understood this concept well. He knew that silence prolongs tension and gradually erodes the opponent's strength. By refusing to engage, you deny the enemy the satisfaction of a reaction, thereby weakening their position. In every negotiation, silence creates pressure. The person who speaks first is the one who loses, because they are revealing their position. But by withholding your response, you keep the upper hand. You are the one in control, and the other side is left wondering what you truly think or intend. In a high-stakes conversation or negotiation, silence becomes a tool of immense strategic value. When attacked, many people feel the compulsion to defend themselves, to explain, to justify. But in reality, defending yourself only invites more scrutiny. By choosing not to react, you signal that you have nothing to prove. Your silence forces the other person to unravel, to fill the void with their own words. And with every word they speak, they reveal more of themselves than they intend to. You remain untouched, while they reveal their vulnerability. Think about how silence affects your interactions. When was the last time you chose not to react to an attack or a criticism? Did it bother the other person more than if you had fought back? In many ways, silence exposes the weaknesses of others. They may be searching for a response, an explanation, or a justification. But by denying them that, you control the pace of the interaction. Silence becomes the space in which you hold all the power. The longer you hold it, the more you own the situation. Every second you don't react, they lose power. This isn't just a theory, it's a tested principle. People think they have to explain themselves, to make their case, to win others over. But in truth, the greatest power lies in withholding your response. The more you can resist the urge to react, the more you establish dominance over your own emotions and, ultimately, over the situation at hand. Silence is not a void, it's a space filled with potential. It's the ultimate form of control, and it demands respect in a world that thrives on noise and reaction. You've heard it before, out of sight, out of mind. But what if being unavailable is not just a passive choice, but a strategic power play? What if disappearing, at least temporarily, can make you more valuable, respected, and feared than ever? In a world where everyone is available at the touch of a button, could your absence be the most compelling part of your presence? Think about it. When you're always available, you diminish your own worth. It's human nature to value what we can't easily have. So why keep giving your time away so freely? What if the key to commanding respect is being scarce, not abundant? Machiavelli understood this principle well. Leaders who are constantly at the disposal of others lose the mystique, the authority that comes with their position. It's not about being rude or rejecting others outright, but about creating a sense of exclusivity. Being constantly accessible is a vulnerability. It signals that you are too eager, too willing, and too desperate. You know who they respect. The ones who are hard to reach, the ones whose time feels more precious than gold. What if your absence could be the most powerful statement you make? Consider some of the world's most influential people, from artists to CEOs, even politicians. They've mastered the art of availability. They don't show up at every event. They don't answer every call. Their very unavailability enhances their value. People chase after them, wanting what they can't have, needing what they can't quite reach. Could you become more influential by simply being less available? Think about how your absence can make people realize your importance. When you are constantly on demand, you lose control over your time. It's a subtle shift, but it's powerful. How many times have you felt overwhelmed or drained because you were always there for everyone else? You give, and suddenly you're drained and no one sees the cost. When you become unavailable, you regain control. You can dictate when, how, and with whom you spend your time. The value of your attention skyrockets, and so does the respect you command. Scarcity isn't just for products. It's for people too. What would happen if you stopped responding to every text, every message, and every invitation? The world around you would start shifting. People would begin to see you as someone with a higher value. They would start seeking your attention, your time, your presence. That's the power of scarcity. It forces others to appreciate what they can't always have. It's a psychological game. When you're scarce, you're desired. When you're abundant, you're taken for granted. Do you want to be a tool that's always available? Or do you want to be the rare, precious item that others covet? Being unavailable isn't about being selfish, it's about being strategic. The greatest leaders in history knew the power of walking away. Sometimes, disappearing is the most effective way to conquer. What if I told you that not needing to win is the ultimate way to secure your victory? In a world where everyone is scrambling for results, the one who doesn't need them is the one who commands respect. The obsession with outcomes only ties you to the whims of others, making you predictable, malleable. What if the key to unshakable confidence is simply to stop caring about the result? Ask yourself, how much of your energy is wasted on seeking approval, chasing validation, or fearing failure? When you are detached from the outcome, you become immune to the fear of losing. You already possess everything you need to succeed because you've stopped depending on the validation of others. The power of detachment comes from the understanding that the process itself is all that matters. It's not the trophy, the deal, or the approval. It's your ability to navigate life without needing these things to define you. Imagine walking into a room where your success, your reputation, and your status are irrelevant to you. What happens to the people around you when they sense that you're not desperate for their approval? They're drawn to your indifference because it signals an inner strength that they can't fathom. It's the kind of quiet confidence that's intimidating, not because of arrogance, but because of an unwavering sense of self. In business, love, or social dynamics, The ones who don't need anything from anyone are the ones who always win. Imagine a powerful negotiator who is completely indifferent to the outcome of a deal. Their calm, composed demeanor shows they're not desperate to make the sale. They're simply assessing the value of the situation. The other party, sensing this indifference, becomes unsettled. They have no idea whether this person will walk away or stay, but they know one thing: they're not dealing with someone who can be pushed around. The real power lies in the ability to remain untouched by the stakes. This level of confidence is rare, but it is the secret to mastering life itself. Machiavelli understood this profound principle when he said that a prince must appear as though he's already won, before the battle even begins. This doesn't mean faking success. It means adopting a mindset where victory is already yours, and the world merely watches as you go through the motions. When you stop needing to win, your presence alone becomes a declaration of strength. No one can manipulate you, because you're not desperate for anything they offer. Your actions speak with quiet certainty, and that is more powerful than any boastful display of success. The true art of detachment is rooted in an internal realization. You are not defined by what you achieve or who approves of you. You are complete as you are. This realization strips away the anxiety and doubt that plague most people. When you detach from the need for approval, you shift your focus to what truly matters: your own growth, your own process. The more you detach from outcomes, the more powerful you become, because you're not just playing the game, you're controlling it. So ask yourself, where are you still attached to the outcome? Where are you seeking validation, approval, or success from others? What would it be like to stop chasing these things and instead simply walk in your own strength, unaffected by what anyone else thinks? This is the supreme confidence that others can never take from you. It's the freedom to act, to lead, and to thrive without ever needing anyone's permission. In moments of crisis, what makes a true leader? It's not the ability to act impulsively or loudly. It's the mastery of remaining silent, unshaken, as the storm rages on. Think about it. When everything is falling apart, who do you follow? The one who panics, or the one who remains calm and poised? In the midst of chaos, calmness is a form of power. When you stay indifferent to the madness around you, you automatically elevate yourself to a higher level of control. But why does it work? How does this silence become a shield, a weapon that cuts through the confusion of crisis? History is filled with leaders who knew this secret. Take Winston Churchill, who, during the darkest days of World War II, didn't flinch. He didn't scream, he didn't react in fear. Instead, he gave a steady, unwavering message to the British people: we shall never surrender. His indifference to panic became the ultimate act of defiance. This is the power of non-reaction. It doesn't just shield you, it commands respect and instills confidence in others. Why do you think people gravitate towards calmness in a storm? It's because it's rare. It's magnetic. It's what people crave when they feel the ground shaking beneath them. Consider CEOs during a financial collapse. They don't shout orders or make rash decisions. Instead, they hold their ground. Steve Jobs, for example, during his second stint at Apple, faced an environment teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Instead of reacting to panic or making hasty moves, he set a clear course of action, remained calm, and focused on innovation. The result? He didn't just save a company, he revolutionized industries. Calmness in the face of chaos isn't just leadership, it's strategic mastery. Those who react with fear or anxiety only serve to fuel the panic. But those who remain indifferent, who stay cool, lead from a place of strength. You may be wondering, can this indifference to chaos be learned, or is it an inherent trait? The answer is simpler than you think. It's about creating space between stimulus and response. When the world around you is crumbling, how you choose to respond can either elevate or destroy you. That pause, that moment of silence, is where true power lies. The more you can detach yourself from the outcome, the less chaos will affect you. It becomes your personal shield against the forces that try to pull you into the frenzy. The appearance of control is more important than the control itself. This, according to Machiavelli, is the core of leadership in any crisis. To others, your calmness in a storm is the mark of a true leader. It doesn't matter if you have a perfect plan or not. What matters is that you can project an image of someone who does. Indifference becomes your tactical advantage. People follow certainty, and by staying unperturbed, you give them the certainty they need in times of uncertainty. By not reacting, you inspire confidence in those who need it most. This isn't just about being unemotional, it's about choosing when to react. Silence in moments of chaos isn't about ignorance, it's about control. It's about refusing to play into the hands of those who wish to escalate the situation. So, when the next storm hits your life, ask yourself, how will you lead? Will you join the fray and react like everyone else? Or will you stand still, watching the chaos unfold, knowing that, in the end, the silence will prove to be the greatest weapon of all? You've just witnessed the hidden power of indifference, the cold flame that burns without a single movement. In a world obsessed with emotions, where everyone reacts to everything, the greatest weapon you can wield is not your anger, not your defense, but your silence. This isn't just about ignoring others. It's about controlling your own reactions. When you master this, you hold a power so subtle, so strategic, that even the most calculated moves of others won't touch you. You are not cold because you lack feelings, but because you've learned to control them. Let me ask you, how often have you been pulled into pointless arguments, emotional outbursts, or situations where reacting felt like a need? What would happen if, instead of giving in to that impulse, you simply didn't? Imagine how the dynamics of your relationships would shift if you stopped reacting and started calculating. The greatest leaders, the most influential figures in history, all knew this secret. They didn't waste energy on emotional traps. They used silence to their advantage. That's the kind of power you can begin cultivating today. Think about the chaos that surrounds you. The people around you, whether in your personal life, your career, or your social media feed, they're all reacting. And every time they do, they reveal their vulnerability. But you're standing still, watching them burn their energy while you remain calm and in control. There's no need to chase the next trend, to be part of the frenzy. Silence is a force more powerful than noise. You can let the chaos unfold around you while you stay unharmed. Now reflect, where in your life are you reacting too much? Are there moments where you could simply stop and observe? What if you stopped trying to convince, explain, or justify yourself? What would happen if, instead of rushing to respond, you gave your silence a chance to speak? Think about the power you could reclaim. What would you feel like if you didn't need anyone's validation? It's time to master the cold flame within you. Stop reacting. Start strategizing. Because the world doesn't need your emotions, your opinions, or your justifications. It needs your strength, your silence, and your unwavering control. When you make this shift, you'll realize that everything you once feared, judgment, rejection, confrontation, loses its power. The moment you stop caring, you become invincible. If this resonated with you, if you felt the weight of these truths, then you know it's time to change the game. Subscribe now. Here, power speaks in silence.